You're listening to a 4x4 Radio Network podcast.
Hey, Jeepers. Welcome to the next episode, show 168 of On the Trail with Kevin and Scott. I'm Kevin, the engineer, the guy you've heard talk about. I've read instructions. I use the right tools, and most of the time I follow those instructions.
And I am Scott. I am the slapstick parts guy that takes those instructions and uses them as a coloring book. Just so you all want to know, the yellow crayon does not taste like lemon. And while we always share what works for us as well as what didn't, like trying to eat a crayon, it's always up to you to do your research, read the instructions, and please follow them.
The manufacturers put a lot of effort into good instructions, so, well, most of them do. And with that segue, we have a very, very, very welcome guest and much anticipated guest. It's taken us quite a while to get together, but y'all know that I'm a big fan of the Metalcloak system, that I've had mine on my Jeep since 2013, and it has lasted many, many miles. And Scott has had one in the trunk of his LJ for what, Scott? Almost 2 years now.
Oh, look, I'm wearing, not only is he a person, but he's also a fellow podcaster.
Yeah.
Deflecting that conversation, moving on, nothing to see here.
So the co-founder of Metalcloak and the host of Modern Jeeper podcast. Welcome, Matson.
Well, hey, welcome, guy. I appreciate it. I appreciate you bringing me on. This has been great. I love this anticipation thing. Makes my ego's growing right here, just live.
We're good at that. No.
That's what we do.
So, folks, we have the privilege and the honor, and there's no BS on that one, of having Matson here with us on the Trail podcast. And we're going to go over a little bit of history on the podcast, on his on the company, a little bit on his podcast, because you really should check out the Modern Jeeper. He's over there in iTunes and all the other sites as well.
And most importantly, what kind of Jeep he drives.
Oh, yes. We're going to cover his personal Jeeps and then what he does with them, where he goes. Hopefully he does something so we don't put him too much on the spot. So, Scott, do you want to lead off?
Hi.
Yeah, I will say this. If you've listened to the podcast, I'm the guy who doesn't get out as much as I should. I live vicariously through others.
Same here.
We just had Jeepers Jamboree, the 70th anniversary of Jeepers Jamboree this last week. Incredible. But, we got a lot of people here, and I let others go to it. I had to stay here. I got the three small ones, and I love my wife, but leaving her with the three small ones is kind of torture. So she, so I get to sit back, enjoy, and it's one of those things. We did a lot of wheeling. I've done a lot of wheeling. I've been on the Rubicon so many times, but letting other people have a chance to do it so that I can sit back here and run things at Metalcloak is really a joy.
All right, cool. Well, we know that according to your website that you guys kind of came into being in 2006 as Rev 111. And you started off making fenders for the TJ, Highline fenders. And around 2009, you decided to change the name to Metalcloak and started with body armor. But then you came in 2010 to some of the neat stuff that you make, which is your signature six-pack shock and Duraflex joints. Can you share a little bit about the history on that? Where did that idea come from? And what was it like to develop basically an industry-changing product?
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of interesting because Rev 111 originally was a company called Rev 1, and it was based in Southern California, Temecula area. A couple of enthusiasts, just like the rest of us get into this business, started making the very first full replacement fenders. I think their first product was for CJs.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the first time you didn't have to go and chop up your fender and cut everything up and hope that you had a straight line just to make some sort of aftermarket fender system. And so they came the first full replacement fender. That evolved. They hooked up with a gentleman who had a company called Sector 111. And Sector 111 was purely sports car parts. I think it still exists. You can Google Sector 111. And they formed together and changed Rev 1 to Rev 111 as the company name. And they had this concept called the Metalcloak. And the Metalcloak was this full wraparound system for the TJ. So, a functional bumper system, functional, front and rear, a fully integrated rocker system. The original rocker from back in the day that we had had six. It was like the one that we currently have for the JK and the JL, we call the Overland, but it was much more boat side style, and it had six possible positions of your bolt-on rocker part to the base that actually went on the TJ. They had also the original, what we considered was called the arched fender. Now, the arched fender, you either loved that thing or you hated it, right? It was cool. It had all this extra clearance, but it truly had high-line clearance without having to cut the hood. Because what they did was they identified all the hit points and they put clearance where the hit point should be. Okay. Even to this day, we're still the only fender that has an angle right back at the body line where your tire can clear when it turns, right, as opposed to a straight right angle, right?
Gotcha.
A little 45-degree there, and it gives you more clearance. So that was the original arched fenders. Unfortunately, they had a certain amount of investment, and once they kind of blew that money, there was no more money coming in. And even though they had a popular product and a lot of real enthusiasts aching for it, they couldn't produce anymore. So they were closed for about a year when we came along and purchased their assets. And the whole idea was to just kind of keep it alive and keep that going. And we moved it up here to California to Rancho Cordova, just about an hour and a half on the Rubicon Trail, dived into their product. One of the challenges of their design was that it wasn't necessarily designed with mass manufacturing in mind. It wasn't production ready. It was more of a craft product. And so what we did was we came in and we redesigned it, created the now ubiquitous balls that you have on the end of your fenders, right? The ball lock joint we call. That had a couple of reasons. Like from a pure engineering standpoint, a pure production standpoint, we could eliminate coping in our tubes.
Gotcha.
And not have to worry about another step in the production process just to be able to put these fenders together. So we had the ball lock joint, made it a stronger fender and a simpler design, eliminated a lot of the hardware that they had involved, but still took that arched fender and then made it live. And that was in January 5th, 2009, when we opened our doors here in Rancho Cordova, in a small little 2,000 square foot facility that had an office that literally is half the size of my current office that the three of us, my two partners who are both engineers and myself, stuffed into. And then a back shop where we had one welder who was a part-time guy, who, by the way, still works for us now, 13 years later, except he is our facilities manager, in charge of the entire building.
Nice.
But he was our first guy who set the standard really of what a quality of our welds would be, what the quality of the product would be. And then from there, it was just kind of growing with it. We built a bumper system, and those that know us back then, if you go back and you look up Pirate 4x4, you'll find a thread called "Thank you, sir, may I have another?"
Yeah, I know it well. I know it well.
That thread was our first attempt at a bumper, and it was the result of that. We put it out there. I came out and I just said I went onto Pirate or one of the other forums. I said, "Hey guys, what do you think of this?" And I got slammed and hammered, and it was just bad. We had a hoop that we still call the mammary hoop, where it had if you ever see the pictures of it, it was bad. But it set a standard for how we handle social media and how we handle our customers. We listened from the beginning, and we didn't go back and get all butthurt about it and say, "Oh, you guys are a bunch of jerks." No, we went, okay, that didn't work. Let's redesign it. And then we came out and we shared all the different flame posts that we had and what we did to address that. And we came out with a different bumper system, and that became a much more popular bumper system, obviously. And that became part of our overall design for the TJ. Simultaneously with that, we had to start expanding. So we got a YJ in, and we started doing some designs on the YJ. It's interesting to note, though, when we started this whole process, we thought we'd have about 3 or 4 months of gearing up and getting product stuff ready before we had to start selling stuff. But as soon as the word got out, and to this day I don't know how it leaked, but when the word got out that we were back and open, I was taking orders. And I was the guy on the phone talking to people. Now, these were orders being taken hey, I'm not taking your credit card now. I'm going to just put it on paper. We don't know when we'll be shipping and when production will occur, but when we're ready, we're going to go ahead and I'll give you a call and we'll get it taken care of at that time. And so within about 3 months, we were shipping product. And, it was kind of the greatest joy, when you're starting out a new company is what sort of, what are your startup goals? And I remember my first goal was just an order a day, right? That's all, my hope was I can get like in a given week, I can have one order a day. And then that grew to, okay, now I need $1,000 a day, right? And then it's 5,000, then it just kind of grew from there as we built our goals up. But the enthusiasm from these customers across the country that had known about this product and the builds that they were doing, and it was incredible. I mean, it was very infectious. And I couldn't have found a better place to really be and to build a career around. For those that, again, listen to our podcast, my background is events marketing, and I ran a beer fest that it was the second one in the region for 15 years. And so
nice.
there were a lot of things I had fun doing, but talking to customers in the Jeep community and the Jeep, it was what blew everything else away. Everything I've done in my life, it was just like, oh my God, this is just going to be an amazing time if we can make it work. And we did.
Cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. So tell me a little bit about, I'm going to start with the two pieces. Number one, the Duraflex joint concept. Sure. Where did that come from? Because I will tell you right now, that product right there is what snapped me to your attention 8 years ago. So I'm kind of curious where that came from. So
the great backstory there is that Doug Powell, who is one of my partners, and he was our chief engineer for a long time. He made money in the backflow industry, and he in fact pretty much every innovation in backflow valves over the last 35 years came from him. Whether it was his father owned a company called Ames Fire and Waterworks, sold that company. Hunter Creation was another company that he created. So every major advancement in backflow came from him. So he was an incredible engineer, 24 patents to his name. And at the time when I met him, he was driving at the time, this is 2009 numbers, an $80,000 Lexus. Now it's probably a $120,000 Lexus. I don't even know what Lexuses go for these days. But that's what he was driving. And he got into a Jeep. Now down the street from us, you understand that right down the street from us, in fact, the building that became our building for a little while was Rubicon Express. Okay. And it was just by happenstance that we happened to put our little 2,000 square foot shop literally a stone's throw from Rubicon Express. So they became fast friends. So all of our rigs, when we got our new JK, for instance, we bought a 2009 JK four-door to start building on. We threw a Rubicon Express kit on there. From the very beginning, Doug, who loves driving this Lexus, got in the JK and said, "Holy crap, this feels like this is terrible. This ride is terrible."
Yep.
Yeah, everybody was saying, this is the standard line would be, well, that's a Jeep. Mm-hmm. That's just a Jeep. That's the way Jeep should be. Doug's not that kind of guy. He doesn't accept that. He wakes up at 3:00 in the morning and goes, I got a solution, right? And if he doesn't write it down on his pad of paper, he pisses him off all day. But he's that type of guy. So he just wouldn't accept that this is the only way a suspension could feel on a Jeep. So the way he works and the way he operates, and the other thing that happened is we created our high clearance fenders, the overline fenders for the JK. Mm-hmm. And in doing our testing, which at the time we were simply doing RTI testing, we hadn't developed corner travel index yet. In doing our flex testing on it, he kept noticing that the shock was a limiting factor. So that again pissed him off. It's like, well, I can't even shove a 37-inch tire into my fender that I just developed because the shock's not letting me. So those two things start percolating in this guy's mind. And one day we literally had to have a board meeting about it. He sat down and said, "I want to develop a shock." And, my response was, "You do recognize that we make static parts that don't move." And you're asking us to experiment with the concept of a moving part.
Yeah.
And we did. It was about, we approved a very small budget for him to do it. And within 3 months, he had a working prototype. Wow. And then by the end of that year, we were showing it off. And I think that was 2000. Let's see, that was probably 2011, I believe, was the show that we did at Overland at Off-Road Expo, where we actually showed that we had the six-pack. We announced the six-pack shock.
Wow.
And that was all simultaneously. And that the six-pack shock was really the catch. People who knew understood like yourself understood the Duraflex, but the hook was we had this suspension system with a six-pack shock. What the heck's that? Everybody wanted to be caught with that, right? Taking a look at this. What's this weird shock system?
Yep.
I remember Dave Cole coming up to me and saying, I tried to do that with a couple of, literally took two shocks, strapped them against each other, on his Toyota to try to get that same kind of concept. But we managed to do it with the six-pack shock. The Duraflex joint was just one other element. And Scott Becker, who works with us now, he was with Rubicon Express for years. And after they closed and then got purchased by Transamerica, he came and worked with us. He came to me and said, "You understand this because they've dealt with bushing problems at Rubicon Express for years.
Yeah.
The idea that Duraflex joint was vibration dampening, that was maintenance free, didn't have any moving parts. All of that was what just made it so different." And from Doug's standpoint, we actually the rubber we used was proprietary. It was originally came from a company that had made they were making farm equipment that like shakers for trees, that sort of thing, that required thousands and thousands of cycles on the rubber.
Right.
And it couldn't break down. So for us, it was okay. And then, of course, being the fact that Doug had spent a lot of time in other industries and not just in the Jeep world, he had a different perspective. So he was able to see these other potential tools that he could use, put them together between the vulcanized balls, no moving parts, the vibration dampening that you get out of, essentially you're getting out of your cleavite joint that's within your stock rig, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how can I get it as close to stock as possible, not having any moving parts, there's no wear, because that micro wear is one thing that people just don't really pay attention to. You hear a lot of guys who have had maybe Johnny joints in their rig for decades, right, or whatever, and you add grease. Well, mine runs fine as long as I keep it greased. Well, the point being that you don't really need to do that. If you get rid of the micro wear that occurs, you can absorb all the micro vibrations. And when we talk about micro wear, we're talking about just the little sand and grit and stuff that gets in there and takes 2,000 or 3,000 out.
Yeah.
Right. And it's just a little bit. It's not the stuff that happens. If all you do, and we've talked about this over the years, if all you do is build your rig to go off-roading, you can use Heims, you can use Johnny joints, you can use any of the standard ball joints. And don't get me wrong, I love Curry, I love John Curry and what he's doing over at Rock Chalk, but Johnny joint was the standard. They were the ones we were compared to when it first came out. If all you're doing is going off-roading, you're not going to see that wear at all. It's when you're using it as a daily driver and you're going down the freeway or you're going down that's where the real micro vibration occurs and where the real micro wear occurs.
Mm-hmm.
So what we wanted to do, and I think it was a matter of luck as well from our standpoint. I'll say luck just because the JK took off so well that it became everybody's daily driver and weekend warrior. And so we were able to encapsulate that. The Duraflex joint simply met those standards and allowed for, by having it in parallel on the front and rear of the control arms, we put it on all of our control arms on both ends. We didn't have to put a cleavite at one end and a Heim on the other just to get flex.
Mm-hmm.
So we had the flexiness of the Duraflex joint. We were able to add additional bends on the horizontal plane within our control arms because they wouldn't flop because of the self-centering factors of the Duraflex joint. So, which is something that people, if you have Heims at either end or Johnny joints at either end, you couldn't just go, okay, well, I'm going to put a bend on this front control arm to avoid the front tire because it's going to flop down, right?
Correct.
There's nothing to center it. So that's why you had to have a cleavite at one end. Well, we were able to do that and be able to put all this in because of our self-centering factor in the Duraflex joint.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was just the additional flex. I mean, you had so much flex coming out of the systems that we actually had to, the shocks we run, for instance, you have the light kit, which had the Old Man Emu shocks.
Mm-hmm.
We had those shocks were not the 2.5 to 3.5 inch lift shocks, right? They were the 4 to 6 inch lift shocks.
Right.
Same with Fox. So when we sell Fox shocks, if you want a replacement, it's the 4 to 6 inch lift Fox shock, not the 2.5 to 3.5, because we were getting so much travel, so much articulation out of the rig that we had to go with these longer travel shocks.
Yeah, that way. Otherwise, you're not limiting your down travel, and that's what I think. I've talked about this on many shows on our thing, is that you guys focused on down travel for your CTI numbers more than up travel. Yes, you have up travel like everybody else, but you have just tremendous down travel, which means you have tremendous misalignment, that you have to have a joint that can take that misalignment.
Exactly.
I still get when I send pictures of my rig out on the trail out to folks, and they look at it and they're like, "Did you break an axle or connect?" No, nothing's broken. That's what it does.
Well, that's like we were at Sheriff's Jeep Fest here in Polk County. And,
Jeeping with Judd.
Jeeping with Judd, that's right. And Kevin's Jeep, he calls it slightly altered for a reason. It's a sleeper. And we were crawling over these little whoop-de-doos, and the whole body remained leveled. And I would look at the other people on either side of us with their mouth open, because, the axle would droop so much. This is why I came up with the belly cam shots. And then the people would be looking, and they're like nudging, and then I'd see them go, and, one wheel's in the air, and the other wheel's not drooping. But they're like, how's that little black Jeep doing it? But we're not.
Well, and the thing is that I tell folks that it's just, I've been accused, well, your Jeep's boring. It doesn't, everybody has those dramatic moves. And I'm like, my wife doesn't like dramatic moves. She likes smooth rides. And I let the suspension do the work.
It's the little black Jeep on 33s that could.
It's funny you say that, because, the classic Moab photo is going over Golden Crack, right?
Okay.
And carrying a tire. You have to work really hard and drive really wrong to carry a tire with medical lift. And we'd go out and want to do that shot. And it's like, okay, I got to take it in a hard right there. I'm going to cut it in. Okay, now I'm in a completely wrong position. I shouldn't be driving like this, but I got to cut tire in the air, because it just drives right over.
Right.
You just don't get that classic. And, but it's interesting you said with the down travel versus up travel. When you have, the reason we developed the 6-pack shock is we wanted to have a 50-50 travel ratio. So if you have our high line clearance fenders, like the overline fenders on the JK, if you have, and everything else set up correctly, you're actually going for 50-50. And it's, you see a lot of things when Ian Johnson builds a rig, right? You're watching us, well, I'm going to put all this travel, but here I'm setting up this shock, and we're going to go up through the hood a little bit, just so we can have enough little bit of up travel, and we got 4 inches of up travel, and we got 8 inches of down travel, or whatever it is.
Yep.
He's building it all up. The idea with the 6-pack shock is then you put in the stock location, you're getting that 50-50 travel ratio.
Yep.
So ultimately, that is the ultimate setup, because you're getting, you're letting your tires stuff up as high as they can, and you're getting as much droop as you can on the other side. So really, with that setup in the 6-pack shock, that was just the ultimate design. Then when we went with the Old Man Emus, and as you called it, at the light kit, which was, I mentioned this in our pre-show conversation, it was funny because I had the Game Changer 6-pack system, right? And I did all the marketing, and I had all the graphics, and I did all the naming and products. And then we had the Game Changer light. And it was a discussion point between me and my partners one day, where they're like, Doug especially, who designed all this, says, we're getting rid of light. We're getting rid of the name light, because nothing is light about our kits. They're awesome. They're all awesome, whether you're using the Old Man Emu or the Rock Sport shock eventually that we came out with, or the 6-pack. And so we eliminated that. So it's just kind of funny to hear that term come back. It's like flashbacks to moments in time.
Well, I have to laugh. I've sold you a lot of your kits just by driving the trail, as Scott said. When I show up at an event and I'm told, well, you're only on 33s, you probably shouldn't take this trail. I said, are you telling me I can't? And they're like, well, no, if you want, but, be ready to be winched. I said, you want to put a bet on that? And, everybody just looks at this, quote unquote, little black TJ on 33s. Yeah. And it's just kind of crawl. And then half the time, and I'm not exaggerating, Scott's been there, I come back out of the trail towing somebody else who was stuck on the back. Best one was a guy who dropped his gas tank. So, no, I have a lot of fun with it. To me, it's an extremely well balanced suspension system that performs out of the box as advertised. And, you can't say that about a lot of them. And so my hat's off to you guys and to the designers who did the work. And this is coming from an engineer.
That's kind of tripped me out when the one guy's last name was Powell with your engineer. I'm like, wait, are you two related?
You never know. You never know.
Never know. Yeah, the Powell family.
Yeah.
They're far and wide. In fact, we got Texas compounds. I mean,
that's the side. Well, actually, the Powell side from mine is from the Carolinas, but yeah. So anyhow,
well, you say that story, and it's one of our friends that we wheeled with for a long time. A lot of people have seen it, seen his rig, and Eric, and he has a LJ. It's black and white. It's got some Navy theme to it, and he was heavily involved in Wheelers for the Wounded and some other programs out there. He had the short arms on there, and he still has the short arm. He never went long arm on it. He did a little tummy tuck with it just to have extra clearance, but he was running that rig on 35s for a long time. The 3.5-inch kit, short arms, 35s. And he would go places like Soup Bowl and the Rubicon, drive up there. And it was always fun because there'd be some people sitting around and everybody wants to make bets. So he'd make some bets. Did he take that rig on 35s with a short arm kit right up Soup Bowl? And it was just you had the advantage of the LJ, right? Just an incredible platform. But the flex coming from that little short arm kit. You also talk about guys saying, hey, a little broken, but Corey done that. Corey has put his LJ on the CTI trailer, fully flexed out with his long arm kit that he has, which Scott, you got to see some of those pictures. Maybe it'll entice you to get it done. It is, and people ask that question. Oh, is something broken? Because it is an incredible amount of articulation happening from just one little setup. It's amazing.
It is, and that's the key. Is if I always say Metalcloak and full lockers will get you through just about anything. Because you're going to have all four wheels on the ground and all four wheels will be turning. How can you not move forward? Yeah,
you have to use lockers. Corey and I debated about this the other day. Do you have to use lockers?
As long as you're keeping four wheels on the ground, you're okay. But to tie in what Kevin was saying earlier about an engineered system, it's a complete engineered system designed to work hand in hand. And I think it's actually a good little segue if you don't mind, because Kevin, we were looking on your website before we looked, and Kevin came across them for the TJs, because he'd been kind of questioning some things, and he came across it, and even his eyes perked up like, ooh, this is kind of cool. Another reason why we like the Metalcloak is because the systems are, I guess you want to say, upgradable, maybe?
Yeah. I was really impressed to see that you guys are still offering an upgrade kit for those of us who did the short arm back when that's all there was. And so I was sitting here looking at your lock and load long arm upgrade kit. So I'm guessing that it gives you the arms, the side brackets, and the skid pan, as well as the lock and load upper arms for the front. And everything else comes out of your existing 3.5 kit. Is that correct?
That's correct. And it's part of our overall. We are a systems-based company. We've said that from the beginning with whether it was our fender systems or our suspension systems, but we build systems that work together. And part of that as well is going, okay, so there's really not a lot of difference. Why the coils aren't going to change, right?
Yeah.
The coils are going to be the same. Even if you buy, like on the JK side or the JL side, you try to buy one of our true dual rate kits, like the most basic kits we make, right? You can build that up to a game changer, or you can add it up to a game changer. You can upgrade to a game changer, or you can add components slowly. So we have a way for somebody who budgets in one direction. On the case of the TJ, it is a significant change, right? I mean, you can have everything you want, a 3.5-inch kit that bolts on and you can have fun all day with your TJ. But when you want to go long arm, it's a long-term change. My personal TJ, I have a 98 TJ, love the little thing. And I'm a short arm guy. I'm not a long arm guy. Partly is because I like the feel of the road, right? I don't like the floatiness that a long arm gives you for daily driving. It's just my personal feel. Other people love that. They love that. They love that feel. The rig is. And my little TJ can go do whatever I want it to do, set up it as it currently is. But it's not my big wheeler, right? It's not the one I'm going to go tackle, big obstacles with. for that, I have the shop JK. I mean, we've got so many rigs around here. We actually started um, making deals with our executives so that they can take those rigs and make them their own, because our fleet was just growing. JT, JL, JL 2-door, JL 4-door. Yeah, we just kept growing and growing.
Sounds like your garage,
but,
Scott.
yeah. So but that was the thing, is the TJ. I personally like the short arms, but you can evolve, right? So, and everybody does evolve with their rig, and why make them go through the whole process again when all you need to do is make a few changes? You can upgrade your rig.
Yeah, I've been going back and forth because I understand, your engineer would love this. I understand the difference between the angle of that lower arm and what it means to ride quality. And, the higher the angle is or lower it is, off of horizontal, the more impact from the road you feel in your butt. Whereas the lower it and closer to level, the less you feel in your butt. And a simple, XY dividing. I've been thinking about that.
It's amazing to me, but there are still companies out there that sell like 5.5-inch short arm kits for the TJ. Right? It's like, the angle of those control arms is nasty.
Yeah. And
I don't know why they would do it, but I don't know, maybe they don't care. But we made the determination that at a certain point, on the short arm, it's a 3.5-inch kit. We're not going to sell you a 4.5-inch short arm or a 5.5-inch short arm, even though theoretically the Duraflex joint should eliminate a lot of that NVH.
Yeah.
At those angles, that you actually could get away with putting Duraflex control arms on a 5.5-inch lip and have a much better ride quality than some of the other products that are out there.
You would, but you still have that vertical component of the force. You can cushion it, but it's still there.
It's still there, and it's insane to me to think that there are kits out there that are like that still. You would think in today's, as we've evolved, that maybe some of these companies go back and go, yeah, we should just kill that off of our website. We don't need that kit. But then when we have long arm kits, then it gives you that other option for the 4.5s, the 6 inches, especially on the TJ and the LJ. And then the same thing on when we moved over to the JK world and the JK evolved, we were kind of one of the first companies to have a really true bolt-on 5.5-inch kit, because we had the classic drop bracket, which we call a pro alignment bracket for the front control arms. But then we created the patented DB3 for the rear.
Gotcha.
And the DB3 allowed you to bring those back down and bring the control arms down into better alignment. And it was a very popular product until we came out with our full long arm kits. And even then, with the long arm kits, we still ran the DB3 in the rear. And some people came back, well, that's not really a long arm. I remember, and I'll give them a little bit of credit here. There was a kid named Robert who on Metalcloak Owners Club, which is our group of confirmed Metalcloak customers who can go on to Facebook. It's metalcloakowners.club. Will actually take you directly to that Facebook page. And you can apply to be a part of that. And if you have Metalcloak products, you can be on there and talk to people. It's a private group that allows them to talk to each other. But this kid, Robert, created a meme as soon as we came out with that long arm. And it was Tyrannosaurus Rex holding one of those little grabbers that you use for grabbing trash off the ground, right? And it says Metalcloak long arm. And it was just kind of funny because it really was an indication of what we were doing. We were creating a long arm system for the front and using the stock, or not really stock, but using our mid arms in the rear with this DB3 bracket. But the angles were exactly the same as if you had a long arm. It's just the location of the bracket was different. And by bringing the location of the bracket back, we actually, some people say, well, I've hit that bracket, that sort of thing. But you know what? You're going to hit the long arm bracket too.
Yeah.
So you just didn't have a long arm on there with a bracket hanging down that had problems. And we've seen with the CTI trailer, we've seen so many long arm designs where the rear arms were limited because they were limited by the frame travel. So you had no up travel because you get stopped by the frame.
Yeah.
I remember one of our competitors in the industry, a customer of theirs came over, had just put all this stuff on her rig and came out was at Jeep Beach and just built this up and went into the CTI and got a fairly low score for what he had just put on the rig. And we pointed out just the limitations on up travel. So he went back huffing and puffing back to the company that he just bought stuff from. And their response was, up travel is overrated. It's that.
Okay.
Okay. We all have points of view, but so we try to design and build something that's right, that has the up travel, has the down travel, and didn't need to have all this other major modifications to your rig just to get the same performance you get from a long arm kit.
That's awesome. Now, I want to jump you back to your Duraflex joint, and I see that you guys are now throwing out the Kevlar reinforced rubber. So,
Sure.
Talk to me a little bit about that. Are we improving upon perfection, or is there a reason for it, or is it just better technology begets better product?
We had an opportunity. We had an opportunity to do it, so we did it. We figured it wouldn't make the product. It would definitely not make the product worse, and it would make it better. We just enforced the rubber, and it's an evolution, right? So we're always looking to evolve. We make rev changes on products all the time, 90% of which will never be promoted, like a little change here, a shift in that. I mean, even old TJ stuff, right? Like we haven't touched the product in a while, but we'll make we can make a little change on this inner fender well as to where that bend's at, and we'll just make it as a rev change. And so next time it goes through the cycle, or changing where LEDs are located. Right, we added some changes to that in TJ fenders a few years ago. We're constantly making rev changes. So with the Duraflex joint, at a certain point, I think we were 4 years into it of its life cycle, and recognizing that we have to to keep product fresh too. What new things can we do to it? What is the next evolution of the Duraflex joint? And you can't look at it and go and say, I don't know, what can we do? So there have been some evolutions. There are like some changes to the actual ball on the inside to change surface area.
Gotcha.
Which is just one of those. We just make a little rev change to it just to change surface area, make sure that vulcanization has a greater chance of working.
Mm-hmm.
If anybody ever has a Duraflex joint that for some reason the ball is spinning freely, that means that in the manufacturing process, the vulcanization didn't work. And as everybody knows, if you don't know, Metalcloak has a lifetime customer service policy. We don't have a warranty. We have a written warranty that's somewhere on our website. I couldn't tell you where it's at because the community, when we came out with the suspension systems, basically said, you have to have a warranty. Give us a warranty. Like, okay, well, we have lifetime customer service. Yeah, but that's not a warranty. I want a warranty. Okay. So I'll take some stuff from somebody else and we'll just make a standardized warranty. Here you go. Here's your warranty. But by the way, we have lifetime customer service. Well, what does that mean? Well, that means that no matter your situation, we're going to make sure every customer is happy. Because if we can't do that, we shouldn't be in business. So if you had a problem, if you have a Duraflex joint, if you have something that's been wrong, I don't care if you have 20,000 miles on it and you've been driving it through Fordyce every weekend. If there's a problem and it starts having problems, give us a call. We'll take care of you. That's what we do. So. So with the rev changes, we're just constantly making rev changes, and based on that feedback, like if somebody has a problem with the Duraflex joint, I got a stack of them on my shelf over here that are just little ones where there might be a problem, a devulcanization or something in the manufacturing that we look at, we review, and we see how we can make it better. So the Kevlar was just part of that evolution.
Gotcha.
And making it a little bit stronger, a little bit better, and seeing how that works. Couldn't hurt it, but it would make it better. So, and it's like a small infusion too, right? So it's just some Kevlar powders mixed within the rubber compound, and the powder itself and the fibers just make it a little bit better.
Yeah, it's just a micro reinforcement in the rubber compound. So if you can stop the micro cracking from starting, then you're going to be stronger in a lifespan. I get it. I just thought it was a neat idea.
Yeah, that's another thing we talk about. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No,
so, it is just part of that evolution. So we're always trying to find rev changes that we can do, and it's a tough task for the engineering team because there's a very long list of new products that they are tackling.
That's what I was going to go into.
Some that are that are a 2-week idea from start to finish. Others that are 2 or 3 years in evolution.
Yeah.
And so we're always between that. It's like, oh, hey, we just got some feedback from the customers that we have a challenge with this particular product, and we make a engineering change request. It goes out to the engineering department. they add it to their list, and then they cycle through it and try to get it done and make the changes. And if it's an emergency one, like, oh my God, guys, we really screwed up on this one, which we've done. We've had plenty of those in our history. Like, whoa, or Jeep does something to us. Like, yeah, I'm sorry, guys, the 21 3.6 belly pan needs to be different than the 20, because Jeep made a change on the engine hangers. So guess what? We can't use our 20s now. Our 21s don't fit because a bunch of customers have a 21. Or the latest problem now that everybody's dealing with is Jeep keeps changing, like they're using whatever, or Dana is using whatever pumpkins they can get their hands on because of supply chain issues. And so, Arctic has problems because they can't make their trusses aren't fitting, and our skid plates like, well, which one is this? Which one of the five possible pumpkins are appearing on the Danas? And so, so the skid plates up. Those are things we handle immediately because we need to figure out why that's happening, and do we have to put a warning on the website or pull a product down or whatever.
Matson, I'm curious because looking at your website just blows my mind. Do you even have a number of how many different variants products you carry?
I think we have about 1,400 SKUs now.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That starts from about 3 SKUs in 2009.
Yeah. Wow.
So, and about 1,400 SKUs, and that's variations, right? You have a set of coils, and you have the that same coils are within other products, but we offer them for individually, but there's other things. So everything breaks down, but probably about 1,400 SKUs. Wow. I think was our latest count.
I've seen a big jump because a friend of mine, when he got his Gladiator, we were going back and forth with lift kits, and now I see you have the sector shaft brace, you have those lower control arm brackets for the Gladiator JL, you have the axle disconnect skid plate on that. Now, was that out of necessity you guys made that because someone did a boo-boo on a trail, or is it just, again, the constantly innovating and coming up with new products?
Well, the axle disconnect is interesting because that was the very first thing we came out with on the JL, because the moment you put the JL up on a rack and started walking around it, you looked at that and said, oh, crap, somebody's going to destroy that. Like, what was Jeep thinking?
This is going to end up in
let's
pieces.
Get that one. I think that was literally the first skid plate we created. It was like, are you freaking kidding me?
We had the same exact thing when we saw the first one with it. And it was yours putting up on the lift going, what did that? Step back to the YJs.
Why?
Yeah, it's like, why? Okay, fine. Let's create a skid plate system for that. So we did, skid plate, and you have to, once you put the skid plate on, you have to deal with the steering stabilizer relocation and all that stuff.
Yep.
Right?
Speaking of weird things that Jeep does, one person posted on the Gladiator about, or one of the JL pages about how there's a bracket now on the driver's side to help with rollover accidents, since everyone saw that video. Like, I guess they're welding like a brace so the axle doesn't push into the wheel and cause it to roll over the fender and roll it over. Have you guys noticed any conflicts of interest with your lift kits in that, or is that pretty much a separate deal?
I think it's a separate deal. I haven't heard that come through yet on our side.
Yeah.
When we see these kind of things pop up, so I think they might have been smart enough about that to do it, but not interfere with anything else that needs to go in place. Unless Mopar comes over and says, I want you to put that there specifically to screw with everybody else out there. I don't know if you guys know the story, but the head of Mopar, I don't know if he still is, and the guys at Jeep are always great. We have great friends over at Jeep, but the head of Mopar, when the JL was being designed and developed, was pretty upset that Mopar didn't own the aftermarkets industry for Jeep, that there were so many other companies out there. It was one of the reasons why the JL, unlike the JK, was not given access by everybody. Like the JK, they had an engineering day where companies like Rubicon Express could come out and measure up and do what they want to do with the JK.
Right.
Whereas the JL was like, no, you don't get access to this. No matter how many people you try to bribe, it just didn't happen. And so that was partly because he wanted time. Like you couldn't even get the CAD files. I think there was a moment where somebody made a mistake and the CAD files were available for 24 hours, and a few companies grabbed them. But you didn't want to have that CAD files. You didn't want to have any of that. You had to have. They wanted Mopar to be the #1 supplier of aftermarket accessories. So you never know if. And unfortunately, that would be great if they could do it. But again, I love the guys at Jeep, but Mopar products aren't necessary. You know, we've had plenty of customers take off their Mopar suspension and put on Metalcloak suspension because it just achieved a better result for them.
Well, that's one of the things that I did want to bring up is Kevin and I talk about, you know, because again, a lot of times, even on one of my comments I made on one of my own posts with the lift being installed, one of our listeners said, you know, hey, you know, I have a family, you know, I'm trying to raise. It's just hard to pay some of these prices sometimes. Like when you look at the True Rate 3.5 kit, when you talked about how, you know, you can upgrade it to the Game Changer later, you know, there's one of those things where you give options open to them. So Kevin and I, sometimes we tell our listeners that, you know, if the name brand X suspension is here and it's just a little bit more, save that little more, be a little more happy, pay once, cry once, you know. Again, it's a classic, you know, wheel with what the budget allows, but on top of, you know, being able, having that where you can buy the base system and add on to it later, you know. So there are options, and that's why Kevin and I really preach to reach out to you guys and talk to you guys and call the manufacturer and say, hey, this is my end goal. This is what I want to do. What do you think will work for me? Because again, everyone on the internet's going to say what they think. And so we like the fact that you guys can, like, you have that flexibility with your lift kits. So don't, you know, I kind of preach to the listeners that don't be scared, just call, you know. That might be something they gear you towards to what would make you ultimately happy. Because I just saw a recent video that you posted with the gentleman who took his Jeep in for a suspension kit, and you guys had the whole video you just recently released where you yourself took his rig out for a drive, and the shaking and the all that, you know. Those are some really cool education that you guys even have on your website to get you to think about those things.
And that's right. And it's, you know, our guys, and you know, you guys have talked about Will and you know, the team that we have here. What even new customers, right? People have never had a Jeep before, and they're trying to figure out what they should get and what they should buy. We're blessed by having amazing customers that then they go to our website, and there's customers who have bought our stuff, never talked to us, just went to the website, talked to a friend, purchased it, whatever. But we're here. I mean, we have guys here answering the phone who are ready, whether it's via email, you can email them directly, you can use the form on our website, you can call us up, because that's what we want to do. We're here to help you. And we've all been in that position at one point in time or another. We were all beginners once. And where it's like, okay, what am I going to get? What do I need to buy? What do I need for my rig? I don't need this full thing. What's a 6-pack? What's a rock sport? What I plan on just going and doing fire roads, and it's a hunting rig. What do I really need? And no matter what your goal is with your rig, that's our goal, is to give you the best possible experience, right? Work out something within your budget. I remember, you know, Kevin and Brittany, who have the Light Bright channel, you know, they have a lot of fun, and they really started out with a basic jail, and they went out and beat it up. And at one point they reached out and said, hey, we want 6-packs. I'm like, you know, I didn't want to give them 6-packs because I knew a lot of people would think, okay, cool, I should buy 6-packs. And so eventually they got 6-pack shocks, and they went out there, and sure enough, we started getting a lot of calls or people placing orders online. And one of the unique things we do with all of our customers, whether you place an order by calling us or online, if you place it online, we give you a call. We want to first just thank you for taking that order, but also we want to make sure that you have the exact thing and setup you need, right? Right. So we'll go and talk to you about your rig, about your setup. And I've told more people not to buy 6-packs because it's not what they needed. Save a couple $1,000 and just do a setup with the Rock Sports, because it's all you need for your rig. Unless you're just going for the cool factor, that's fine. But we want to make sure you're setting up your rig and spending the money on the things that are important for what you're going to use your Jeep for.
Sounds familiar, doesn't it, Scott?
It does sound familiar. And I myself did not know about the call. That is really cool, because Kevin had a similar experience when he bought the red hot rod out there. You know, he wanted an extended cab F-250 two-wheel drive with the diesel in it, and Ford's like, what? He like they hit the red button on the production line. The guy wants what? So he got like how many calls from Ford saying, are you sure?
I got a couple of calls from SVO going, you know, this is an offline production. I said, are you telling me you won't sell it to me? Well, no, sir. But you know, they beat around the bush a little bit. And I said, look, let's get straight to the point. You're expecting me to go out and take a, 550 horse, 950 feet of torque in an aluminum body, short bed, short chassis, 2-wheel drive, and I'm going to do something stupid and hurt myself. And he said, well, I wouldn't say it that way, but yeah, that's kind of, I said, don't worry. I definitely will do something stupid. And if I hurt myself, I won't blame you. You want me to sign a release? Because I want my truck.
The lawyer's over there just putting his fingers to his temple going, we can't do this, guys.
But to their credit, Ford sold me the truck, and it is every bit as awesome. It's a 2019 version of the old Dodge product called the Little Red Truck, if you remember that. An overpowered two-wheel drive rocket ship, and Scott hangs onto the seat with all three hands.
Wouldn't it be as nearly as disturbing as when it gets in either one or three songs are playing Rocket Man, Radar Love, or no, I'm just kidding.
Freebird usually does it.
Yeah,
The drum solo at the end.
I'm worried one day I'm going to get there, Iron Butterfly is going to be going. I'm like, oh boy, here we go.
But yes, it's it's one of the things that we've talked about, Matson, on our show repeatedly, is that unless you are really good, stick with an engineered suspension mod. This is something that's just really, I hate to say it, for most people, piecing it together out of various components from either junkyards or other manufacturers and bits and pieces, you stand a greater chance of doing yourself great harm than picking someone who's taken the time and invested the energy and the money to do the design and then tested the prototype to, as you say, uncover those little OSs and then addressed them. So,
right.
You guys have definitely shined on that particular count in my book.
Well, I appreciate that. One of the things about doing the CTI and the Corner Travel Index stuff, we've tested well over 9,500, almost 10,000 rigs since we started doing that in 2014. And we have all that data, right? We keep all that data.
I wondered about that.
Every one of those data sheets that is filled out, it's on file and it's a database. In fact, I'm reworking currently our website, because we used to have a website at cornertravelindex.com where people, and it was more of a social site where you could go in, you could put in your own information, and it was a site where you could, hey, I just went CTI and here's mine and here's my history. And that kind of didn't really serve the purpose of the time. Plus the data was lost by one of our, a young kid who was just getting into computers decided to make a change, and all that data was lost.
Ouch.
That we still had the data, but the actual site and everything it took to build it in, because every one of those actually had images for every CTI. Like in the beginning, we were doing a lot of proof. Like, listen, guys, this is it. This is the proof of the picture. This is the proof of the flex. This is the proof of the measurement. Before people came to understand that how much CTI was being used, and people came to want to do it. But all that data we still have, and so that data we use to understand where systems are, where they are in comparison to tire size compared to suspension lift and which lift it is, and be able to do comparisons on all that design. So we, but in doing that, we learned and we were able to develop better overall systems for us. What's interesting now, and Corey can tell you this, he talks about on our pod, is how many people are not going for systems these days. It used to be when they filled out that form, it's like, what suspension you have, Rubicon Express or one of the other companies, Terraflex, whatever. Now it is like, you've got this guy's steering system, this guy's control arms, this guy's coils, this guy's shocks. Like they're Frankenlifting this together. And it's not like, well, I can only afford these things. It's like this concept or idea that I want the best steering system. I want the best shocks. I want the best coils, based on a perception, right?
Yep.
I go back when I was 8 years old. I was doing model rocketry in LA, which is an interesting place to live in LA, and shooting rockets up into the sky out of your backyard. But it was what we did. And my buddy had gotten one of those kits that was a do-it-yourself build kit.
Yep.
And so I was over at his house, and I wanted the sharpest cone. I wanted the longest tube. I wanted the biggest parachute. I wanted all. So I made a deal with him, and I got like all these best parts so I could build my own rocket. So we put it together, built it, and shot it out of his backyard right in the middle of LA. And I had a problem. Well, I chose the biggest parachute.
Yep.
Well, it wasn't the right parachute for that setup because the parachute didn't deploy. So rocket went way up, up, and I had the biggest engine I could put in. It just went up, and then
turned over and started coming down like a missile.
It was 11 o'clock at night. I had no idea where it was at. I'm just okay, it's done. Thankfully, the next morning when we woke up, we discovered where it was at. It was perfectly pointed into the roof of his garage, stuck like an arrow. Straight up and down. Yeah. So, fortunately as a child, I had a lot of luck. I wore it out when I was a child because I didn't go through somebody's head.
Right.
But but that was the idea. Like I didn't have the right system. And so with Metalcloak, we've always been system focused, right? You build a right system that does everything correctly. The challenge with all these other trying to Franken system it together is then those are the calls we get with, I'm having a little death wobble. Okay, so what made that come from? Well, that's not our steering system on there. Have you adjusted that properly, right? Or I'm not getting the travel that I should be getting, or the ride quality isn't as good as I would expect. That's the problem is that, well, you adjusted these particular shocks that you bought that look really cool, but have you adjusted them properly? And we're not in a position to go and test everybody's products to try to make sure that they work. What's the best way to set up that steering system with a Metalcloak suspension? Or what's the best way to set up those shocks with a Metalcloak suspension, right? That's on the job of the forums, the customers, whatever they want to do. But we build a system that works great together every time. But we are seeing more and more customers wanting to buy this cool product and this cool product and this cool product and this cool product because they think it all will work together and we have the best of the best.
Well, unfortunately, that doesn't work that way, folks. And I say that to our listeners. You should know by now. I'm a civil engineer, and I don't pretend to be a mechanical. I go to the mechanicals when I want something on dynamic suspension, and everybody's got their expertise. We've preached it for 6 years and continue to preach it. That
I lived it.
An engineered system by a competent engineer is your safest bet. And the one thing I get comments on, Matson, to that, and I share this also with our listeners, and I'll post them, Scott, we'll have to repost the pictures. There's a good shot of the front of my TJ on a rain sluice here in Florida. Nothing like what you have out there in the West, but you still see the front axle twisted over at probably about 30 degrees off level, and the rear, if you look carefully, is twisted the other way. And then right next to it is a picture. I got authorization of the very same TJ on the track at Daytona across the lines. They let me run it at speed at Daytona several years ago. And the same suspension that could do both, And does it do each to an extreme? Hell no. It's not going to run with the NASCAR, and nor is it going to run with a dedicated, trail rig. But for a single Jeep, it's pretty broad-based. But then again, it's a complete system. And
on the other side of that coin, I lived the whole, budget build stuff, on the JK hit we had. And again, people understand, like you said, you've been there with the model rocket. I had, the Dory's old JK.
Yeah.
And, again, I'm cheap. I'm very cheap. So I got a 2.5-inch Terraflex budget lift kit, put it on top of a 2-inch Rubicon Express spacer lift. I bought some used 6-inch long travel Fox shocks. I spent some more money on a track bar adjustable from Rubicon Express. So I Franken lift my lift together. Total cost, $1,800 at the time. You see where I'm going with this? To get nothing, to have Corey go, your shock's hitting the body, you could do better this. And, it's to his credit, he's very polite, but at the same time, I'm kind of like...
Read his body language.
Read his body language going, I was like the teenage kid with the Lee press-on hood scoop, the 15-inch woofers in the back of his mom's Honda, and I cut the coils. It was that equivalent, okay? And the whole time, Dory's like, we're getting a Metalcloak lift. We're getting a Metalcloak lift. And so that's why I've chosen... I got the lift on the LJ. It was soon after I'm going to get the one for the Gladiator. So, but the whole point is that I learned my lessons. Buy once, cry once, and get the engineered one. And I've ridden in Kevin's Jeep. I know what I'm going to get. I know what I got, and I read the testimonials, and I've lived it. I spent $1,800 on a budget lift kit that I could have just...
That shook like a wet dog.
It was scary to drive. 4.5 inches of lift on non-adjustable control arms on a 4-door JK. Need I say more?
Like we said, he's a podcaster.
Matson, did you pass out? Or I hear you shaking your head.
Hey, somebody has to be the counter for the podcast. I'm the tech guy.
I'm the zip tie guy for a reason.
That's why you guys get along so well.
Pretty much, yeah. There has been times he's slapped the wrench out of my hand, going, no. We ain't doing that.
I'm sorry, you're getting ready to say something,
awesome.
Matson.
No, it is an interesting world that we've always tried to focus on creating things that work. Corey has said this in the past, and I take it really to heart. That if he couldn't do his job of traveling the country and doing all these CTI tests, if we had bad products, right?
Yep.
Because it would be a nightmare. People getting up on the CTI trailer and complaining about this not working, that not working, what sort. It's when it's other companies that we see, and we do what we can to help and help them, get there. We do it all the time. We're Jeepers. We're part of the Jeep family. We all love our fellow Jeepers, even if you're running somebody else's product. We're still there to help.
Yeah.
It's our goal is forever to make sure that you're safe and you're going to enjoy your life as a Jeeper, and you're going to enjoy your weekend, enjoy your trail run, whatever, no matter what it happens to be. We just happen to prefer our products because we really designed our stuff. And in the early days, this was one of my, when I don't get to spend as much time on the phone, right, with customers anymore. Like I used to be the sales guy. I got to talk to everybody. It was awesome. I met so many different people, and I learned very quickly that stereotypes on for parts of our great country exist for a reason.
Yes,
exist for a reason because they're real. I love them. And, I've had some of my favorite customers that I can barely understand because they were in some deep part of Louisiana or the South or even New York. But in doing the setups, we have always made sure that our customers are getting what they need, and nothing more, nothing less. But making sure it works for them. And if we need to, and if there's a problem, we try to fix it too. And I've told customers multiple times, right? You can go and you can get and put this suspension system on your rig. It drives like a Cadillac. This is my standard line for years. It drives like a Cadillac on the freeway, corners like a sports car, and go off road with the best of them. There's not another suspension system that is like that performs like that. One of my favorite customers, he moved out of California, a guy named Don Ogawa, amazing dude. His JK was fully built, and he wheeled it every weekend. Now, it's not a big deal. A lot of us wheel a lot, but he also had to use that same vehicle to drive to the Bay Area from Sacramento. So that's about a 90-minute drive, commute daily. So he took a 90-minute commute. So he would go wheeling. He had to have a confidence enough in his rig that he'd go wheeling the Rubicon over the weekend, be able to drive in on Friday, come out on Sunday, be ready to go Monday morning to drive that same rig all the way out of San Francisco and back every day, 5 days a week.
Wow. Awesome.
And there isn't really another suspension that has that kind of quality. It's easy to say that, and I didn't even realize this in my early days, that you take like a Rubicon Express suspension and you go in on Friday and you drive in the Rubicon and come out on Sunday, that vehicle doesn't feel the same. You get back on the road, it's just not going to feel the same. It didn't feel the same as Friday. Yeah. There's adjustments that have to happen. There's wear that occurs. A Metalcloak suspension, you go in on the Rubicon on Friday, when you get out and you get out on Saturday and back on the trail, it feels exactly the same as it did Friday.
Yep, just needs a bath usually.
Being normal. Exactly. Needs a bath. Might smell a little bit from you, but that's
Well, Matson, let me add you one more. Is that when I put my lift on in 2013, I was still employed by the U.S. government. I'll put it that way, as the lead engineer for the military programs in the state of Florida, and my TJ and I lifted, regardless of what happened on the weekend, would leave Tampa, head to Miami. Then from Miami, it would head up to Patrick Air Force Base on Cocoa Beach. And then it would come back through Orlando with any other stops at any other installations. And I did that week after week after week. And your system did both, And in fact, some of the times I would be spending nights in job sites, and we would be out there going out to the backside of a job site. So I'm like, well, I'm just going to jump in, pull my disconnects, fold them up, lock them up, and we would take off and use it on the construction job sites, which are down here in Florida. Probably if we had a trail that maxed out at 5, the job site would probably be 10, because you haven't seen what a pan scraper can do to the world. And then turn around, and I'd have to clip it back together in the parking lot of the hotel and head for the next facility. So I can vouch for you on that as far as a wheel on Sunday, drive to work on Monday. Yeah, it did it for years for me.
I get it. I get it. I need to install my lift. I get it. All right. Jeez. So am I blacklisted from ordering my new lift until I get this one installed?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, you're banned from doing anything until
I'll have
such
to
time
sign off for you, Scott,
Exactly.
that it's been fully installed, and we'll send pictures.
You can't have the next one until we have pictures with Kevin showing everything toward to specs of you install this one. You only get one per customer, right?
It's like your mom. No dessert until you clean your plate.
Exactly. My chores aren't done yet. Yeah, I got you. Okay. I get it.
Yeah, you'll be the guy with 2 kids sitting there gathering dust. Which one did I work on today?
No, I'm not going to do that.
No, we'll force him to get it done here.
Someone out there, there's a customer who desperately wants an LJ.
I know.
Long kit, and he's sitting there going, how can you be that way? How could you even have sold it to him? That's such a waste.
Yep.
I know. The funny thing is when William commented on my Facebook post saying, I'll send the Sawzall blades to Kevin to make sure this gets installed. And that was, 4 or 5 months ago?
Yeah, well, I moved. What can I say?
I've been going through a lot, guys.
Yeah, you've been using that excuse for a while.
I know. I'll shut up now.
So anyway, with all of that said and done, I really do think, Matson, first thing we got to do is say thank you so much for taking time out of your busy life to share some jokes and some information and some neat history with us here on the trail. And I hope our listeners like it. I'm sure they will. And folks out there in listener land, you know it as well as I don't push anybody's stuff, but I will tell you that based on my experience, a call to Metalcloak will not be a wasted call.
No, not at all.
I appreciate it. I appreciate your time. You guys are a great show and had a lot of fun. I've had a lot of fun just in my own homework, listening to you guys. The dynamic you have, is incredible, and it's really something that is needed. So what we need to do is probably do a cross promo, Modern Jeeper show.
Absolutely.
We'll all get on the show. You, me, Corey, Jesse, and all you guys. We'll just do a big show and just for the fun of it. And
that'd be fun. I'd love to do that. And to my listeners out there, Scott and I's listeners, check out the Modern Jeeper. Hear Matson and Corey. And if you've never been to an event with a Metalcloak CTI trailer, go. You really need to go because it's an experience unto itself. Because Corey and I'm sorry, the young lady's name? Jessie, that's right.
Jessie.
I'm sorry, Jessie. It's being 64. The two of them will push your Jeep further than you will ever push your Jeep, but then they'll tell you about it. And you can use that as great experience for improving not only your Jeep, but yourself and your driving style.
Yes, and like I said, check out their show too. They had a really cool interview this past one with the gentleman who helped design the JL. So another thing too is you guys got I saw your announcement today. I subscribed to the show in 2 days. I get to hear that one show coming out. So that you guys just recorded the other day. But again, thank you very much, Matt. We really appreciate being approachable and it doesn't take being a podcast to talk to you guys. All it takes is a phone call and reach out and get that information and do it right the first time. Don't be like me.
Don't be like the classic line from the Car Talk. Like, don't be like my brother. Yeah, don't be like my brother. Yeah, don't be like me. Don't do it the way I do.
Don't Frank.
I say, honestly, I say that all the time to customers too. Because even though it's my, this is my company and it's a great thing. We make amazing products. I am the set it and forget it guy. I'm not the adjuster guy. I'm not the guy who keeps my rig super clean. So we have a wide variety of people here who can help you understand what your style is and where you fit on the customer grid. And the person, I call it the customer personality type. And we'll make sure you're taken care of.
There you go.
Well, folks, I think that's all that we've got for today. It's time to put the Jeep in 4-low, lock hubs, and hit the trail.
And make sure you install your lift.
Yeah.
And with that, take nothing but pictures, memories, and your trash when you leave the trail. We want to keep these trails open for your children's, and children's.
So thank you very much, and bye now.
Bye.
Proceeding has been provided for entertainment only. Proper service and repair procedures are vital to the safe, reliable operation of all motor vehicles, as well as personal safety of those performing those repairs. Standard safety procedures and precaution, including the use of safety goggles and proper tools and equipment, should be followed at all times to eliminate the possibility of personal injury or improper service which could damage the vehicle or compromise its safety.
What he said. Thanks a lot for listening, guys. You guys have a great day.
Bye.
This has been a Bent Axle Media production.